So this particular civics question that was worth asking was actually asked by someone who commented on the Protect and Serve video that I made. And effectively, it comes down to is, are police separate from civilians? And Frank Clymer is the one that suggested it, and he really brings up a thoughtful point, because we often hear about how people talk about police and citizens as if police officers are something that's actually separate from the rest of the civilian population. And that language, when you say it like that, it's kind of misleading. It's like, you know what? Police officers are citizens too. And more often, we need to think more importantly here is that police are also civilians. They're not the military. And that distinctions really matters when we take it from the point of living in a constitutional republic. In the United States, we have a long tradition of separating military power from ordinary civilian law enforcement. And that idea is reflected in something called the Posse Comitatus Act, which generally limits the use of federal military to enforce domestic law unless the Constitution or Congress specifically allows it. And there's a very simple reason for this. A free society should be very careful about using soldiers to police civilians. Military force is designed for war and for national defense. Police power is supposed to operate inside the civilian legal system with things like warrants, due process, the courts, local accountability, constitutional limits, public oversight, all of those things. So when we talk about police and civilians, we should be kind of careful, because the better distinction is not police versus civilians. The better distinction is public officials versus private citizens. Police officers are public officials entrusted with government power. They can stop people, they can detain people, they can arrest people, they can use force in a limited number of circumstances, and their constitutional responsibility is to enforce the law. And all of those are very serious powers. But those powers do not place them above the law. In fact, the opposite should actually be true. Because police enforce the law, they must also be bound by the law. Well, that doesn't mean officers and private citizens have identical legal authority, though, when it comes to every situation. A police officer acting lawfully can do things an ordinary person can't do, but that authority only exists because the law grants the authority. It limits the authority and also defines it. So, if an officer conducts an unlawful search or uses excessive force, makes an illegal arrest, lies on official paperwork, plants evidence, or just violates due process, that is not law enforcement. That is government. It's government power breaking the law. And that's why the rule of law is really so important. The rule of law means the law applies to everyone, including the people who enforce it. Now, it's not perfect. It's not always, quickly, and it's not always, the accountability that people expect. But, that is the principle. Police legitimacy really depends on the public believing that police officers are not some kind of separate class. They're not soldiers occupying a population. They are civilian officials that are serving under civilian law. Now, that distinction matters especially today, especially when we have debates about police accountability, the use of almost military grade or militarized equipment, protests, the advent of body cameras now, use of force issues, and then also something that's come up is qualified immunity. All of those are part of the public conversation. And so, when it comes down to it, a republic needs law enforcement, but it also needs law enforcement that remains answerable to the law. And so All right, tying this back into civics, right? The point is this. Police officers are not outside the civilian population. They are members of it. And they have special public authority, but that authority must be limited by the Constitution, by state law, department policies, courts, and then just public accountability. And it's all because in a constitutional republic, no one should enforce the law from above the law, right? If that makes sense, right? And I want to thank Frank Clymer for bringing this one up, and I really he brings up a great point, and it really was one of those civics questions that was worth asking. Thanks for your time today.